Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Telling It Like It Is. My name is Jade Alberts, the founder of Pure Guidance. We are a purpose before profit group that guides small businesses, startups, and entrepreneurs. Sharing knowledge and stories is why I started Telling It Like It Is. It is live. If you are watching and you have a question, slap it into the comment section. If you're watching this after the fact on another social media channel, put your questions in there. We will be answering them as well. I am really excited about today's guest, Bhavik Chauhan. Welcome to the show today. How are you?
Good, I'm great. Thank you very much for having us and giving us the opportunity to talk with you.
Oh, I've really liked what you guys have done and what you do. And we've had some talks in the past with different clients, and I always like to talk about how we were introduced. And Randy Thompson introduced us, obviously through Valhalla, and obviously we both have a big sports background, so that's
Yeah,
something that we clicked on right away.
for sure. Yeah, yeah,
It's funny. When I talk about, this is something that I just want to touch base before we get going. But people always say, "Oh, Jade, you have the sports background. How has sports helped you in your life?" And I always say, you know what? It has gotten me absolutely almost everything from today to getting my first job to becoming partners with Nathan's to meeting the people that I have today. Like it is something that is just an important part. And we even talked about as an adult networking at all the our baseball games, your football games, things along those lines.
yeah. I mean, it's a huge part of my life as well. I mean, growing up playing the sports at a high level as well, so it just gives you a different perspective, I think, and a different way of doing business as well. I think because we become competitive, it gives you some sort of a different drive in just life in everything that you do. It's like, yeah, you're just gonna do the best you can at everything you do. So yeah, I think sports is a major part of me as well. Def.
No, I agree, and that's something that I've never really talked about in the intro before. So now I can say I've knocked that off my list.
Glad to have helped.
Exactly. I will give a brief little intro here, and then we'll get after it. So, as much as Bhavik loves business development, marketing, and managing people, he loves coaching and educating the youth, giving them an opportunity to learn and develop raw talent in sports and real life. He takes his life education and create it into education for tomorrow's society. He has been coaching soccer for over 20 years and has a tremendous learning path to his success. So I just kind of wanted to put that in there because, I knew our intro was going to be going down that sports way. And of course,
Yeah.
you're a very accomplished business person, and what you're doing with OKR, I just love. And I mean, you provide bridge financing to companies, across Canada without losing control. Can you please share what kind of size of companies you deal with?
Yeah, so I mean, we work with all sizes of companies, from startups straight out the gate to all the way to ones that have been doing business for 10 years, 15 years. So we work with everyone, and what we've tried to achieve, I think our mantra is as a company, is to sort of grow the tech ecosystem in Canada. And one of the biggest things I found is the learning curve. When you come straight out the gate, it's all about building this idea, trying to get this product out there, this new thing that you've invented. But they don't think about, how do I get there with finance, capital, the right people, the strategy. They don't really think about that. And then I also found that companies that have been in business 5 years sometimes don't even think about those things as well, that they're just trying to utilize their own resources and raising money and giving away equity too early. So as I said, we work with all sizes, ones straight out the gate, as well as the ones that have been established for a while. Sometimes the ones straight out the gate, I might not be able to help them financially straight away, but I can definitely help them in other areas of guidance, whether it's to do with government funding, navigating, tapping into other non-dilutive resources. Or a strategic partner that they should be working with or talking to, or helping them with their market research, make sure. I like to say this to most young companies is, if it's a dream that you're trying to build and it's a passion project, you're probably not going to be successful. But if you're striving to actually make money out and turn it into business, you have a better chance of actually doing it right. So I try and sort of establish that with a lot of young companies as they come out the gate.
Oh no, I love that, right? I mean, and I see a lot of idea stage companies, obviously that early stage companies, and I kind of want to get your perspective on this as well. I agree 100% with you that, companies try or think that they want to give away equity so early in the process, whereas like, you know what, we got to become profitable. Let's get that bottom line going. Let's show people that you're an actual business. Helps when you're going to go look for a certain financing down the road. But why do you think companies shouldn't give away equity too early?
Because if they've got a really good idea, and I mean a really, really good idea, and let's just say it's only $500,000, that's all they can get. There are other sources to get that $500,000. And I typically find if you give away equity too early, when you really need to make that big launch, whether it's and you need, let's say, $10 million, by the time you get to that raise, you've probably given away more than 50% of your company and you've lost control. And as a founder, losing control too early. And you don't realize that. And your early investors, you're diluting them, and you keep going down that route, and you end up diluting most of your equity versus the investor's equity as you're doing this work through, and you just lose control. And you end up maybe year 4, you're right on the brink of exploding, but you really have no say apart from being the. So I think it's really important to try and retain equity as long as you can before you start giving it away.
And that's such great advice, and it's kind of advice that we follow too. And I think it's very important because I think there's this fantasy, right, of the Valley that everybody's like, oh, okay, yeah, here we go, angel money. To do is give away 20% of my money, company. I'm going to get $500 to $1 million, and then I'm off to the roads and I'm going to be successful. I see so many timelines that people are like, I'm going to launch my company. I'm going to be here. I'm going to have $1 million in angel funding by 1 year and go from there, which it's just not reality.
No, it's not real. It's not real. And then you always find, especially I see a lot of pitch decks every week, is it's $1 billion or $1 trillion industry. Really, I don't care. I really want to know what's your immediate impact in the next 3 to 18 months. What are you really going to make? What's your real traction going to be? They've got to, and I think sometimes giving a lot of young entrepreneurs a reality check helps them, and they appreciate it.
Yes.
A lot of people just fluff it around, and I just feel like, no, this is what you guys need to do. Think about it.
I think those honest conversations are important for a lot of young entrepreneurs and startups to hear, right? I mean, it's, even through Startup TNT, we see a lot of really early stage companies that are looking for investments. And when you sit down and start talking to them, it's like, okay, you're a ways away. Like we've got quite a few steps before you can even become investable. And sometimes people are shocked.
Yeah. It's because they don't do their homework, right? Especially if they're very technical and creative. Their brains just don't function that way sometimes. It's all about the product, how to evolve that product, and they're not thinking about anything else that's needed. They just think it's going to happen naturally. It doesn't work like that.
No, it shouldn't. That's a movie compared to Well, let's talk about that startup process. And again, sometimes it can be difficult for a startup to secure funding, and any type of funding. So, I mean, if let's just say Jade Alberts is starting I have a startup and I come to you, how or what should I do to qualify for financing?
Well, first of all, financing, we have 3 different types of solutions that we provide at OKR. We're a private fund. We have over $140 million of assets under management. And the 3 things that we do is, first one is we finance government-funded programs, which is more geared towards the startups. So let's say you're a startup coming in. What does that mean? So if you're doing tech work and you're being innovative and you're paying yourselves, you're paying contractors, or you're wasting material, developing prototypes, you can qualify for a tax credit, SHRED, which is probably the longest running program in Canada, the most lucrative one for R&D nationally. This is an entitlement program, and there's other tax credits as well, depending on what industry, in like film and digital media tax credits. But the most common one is SHRED. And what that works is, as you do your taxes every year, you get a reimbursement on your spend. And as a young startup, that returns cash from the CRA. So you've got to be spending to sort of qualify for these programs. Now, what happens is the tax credits are processed where you sort of file typically 2 to 3 months after your year end with your company taxes, and then takes about an average of another 3 months to receive that money. We bridge that gap. And what that gives a startup is we use that as security, the actual tax credit program, which means as a young startup, they don't have much as it is. Some of them do, but most of them don't. So they don't have to give up personal guarantees. They don't have to put their house up to secure their cars or any other hard assets. It literally is the program. So that gives them something that, okay, they don't tangibly own, but it's something they're owed back from the government, which they can leverage. So that's number one. So it's a nice and easy process, and that's what we do. The second part of the government funding is government grants. A lot of companies don't spend enough time researching to see how much money is out there. There's billions and billions of dollars given out every year by the government for different types of activities, and they're not really geared for startups, should we say? So you've got to think of the government as investors. So they think 9 out of 10 startups are going to fail just based on the notions we're saying. It's just an idea, and they're not really getting out there. But if they're spending money or selling something, they've got a high chance of actually qualifying for a lot of these programs. So there's two solutions that we do at OKR. One is we help some of these companies actually get approved because 90% of these programs require some sort of a cash contribution to qualify. So I'd advise them, okay, with my background pre-OKR was in the government funding space. I ran a consulting firm, so I'm sort of well-versed. I can sort of advise them how you navigate the different grants and the systems out there to maximize on that. And if you need a cash contribution, we can provide an LOI to say, okay, I'll provide the cash contribution so you can get approved for a grant. So now they can sort of the startups can chase these programs without worrying about the finance portion, but more just about the technical and the personnel to qualify for the grant. Once they get approval of the program, we can then leverage that to provide financing. So they have cash flow to go utilize the grant. So what happens with government grants is you may get approved for $500,000, but you don't normally get the money up front. It's normally as you spend and you get reimbursed. And depending on the program, the turnaround time can be anywhere from 15 days to 120 days to receive your money from the government. So with young companies, it's cash flow. They need cash flow now. So then we can leverage that to provide them cash flow to go and what they need to go and do. And again, it's not giving away equity. So lets them still stay in control of their companies and leverage what's out on the government funded side. So my advice to when a young startup comes in, what are they leveraging? Are they leveraging any of these programs? And if not, I sort of understand, okay, what's the business going to be for the next 3 to 18 months, where they're going to spend and grow, where their focus is going to be, and sort of maybe guide them to go work with a consulting firm, or if they've got their own bandwidth to do applications themselves on different funding portals they could utilize to find the programs and go get that money. And you'll be very surprised. Like you can go all the way from $10,000 to $100,000 in government funding in a space of 3 to 4 months, and it will just change your mindset on your business.
Yeah, and I am always surprised at how many companies that I've actually talked to that have not gone down the government grant, like the grant side of the world. People that have developed apps that are, already at that 60,000 or 100,000 MRR that have done everything themselves. And they're like, oh, I didn't know there was grants out there. And I was like, oh my God. Like, it amazes me. And, some are obviously very grant, worthy. I think they spend too much time looking for grants and not on their business.
It is a balance. But I think part of this is a lot of the programs that are out there, and there's over 2,500 programs. And if the government mandated, they don't have the bandwidth or the money to go promote every single program, right? So the government doesn't do a great job of highlighting where all the funding is. The key programs, they do a good job. They tend to go to events, they promote, they do panels and stuff like that. But there's over 2,500 programs, and people just don't know where they all are. So, it's just navigating them and taking the time. And as I said, maybe it's part of the education system when they're coming through the universities and graduating through colleges and say, hey, look, there's grants out there. If you're going to start your own business, maybe there should be a part of a module of how to do research and finding funding that's out there for what you're doing. We don't have that currently nationally in place anywhere, but maybe it's part of the system that needs to be introduced. Say, look, there's funding out there, and the government wants to use this money up as well. They want it to go out there. And the major reason behind this is, and which I found in the last 7 or 8 years, is Canada's like probably about 47th in the world in tech. And being as far close as it is to the US and the nation is, it should be further up the ladder, should be in the top 15. And what was happening was a lot of young companies, especially when that big app boom was happening, different apps and different games had been developed, people were just developing it as really quickly as they can, cheap, and flipping it to the highest bidder as early as possible down south. So now that technology is a US technology. That's what was happening. Now it's sort of people are staying here. So the government's come up with more and more programs to try and keep the tech here hiring more Canadians and residents to try and stay here and grow a Canadian business. So the programs are evolving. There's more and more coming out. They're increasing how much they're giving. A simple example is there's a hiring grant that used to give $15,000 to $20,000 for an intern, and you were capped at two. Now it's uncapped, and they give you $36,000. So they can see, okay, we've got to spend more money here, and it's evolving, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely see it evolving, and I mean, especially right here in Calgary, right? I mean, Toronto and the Waterloo and Vancouver's, a much farther ahead than we are. But we're slowly catching up, which is a good thing. And I agree with you. I didn't know that stat that Canada was ranked 47th in the world in tech. And we should be a hell of a lot higher when we're literally, just above the world leader. So.
Yeah, but it's been developed in Canada. It's just because it's sold. Because it was sold, it's no longer a Canadian technology, and that's the thing, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And if you're touching Calgary, so I mean, I'm going to give props to the Alberta government and the Alberta program managers. I find them a lot more friendly and easier to work with. And they'll actually walk you through applications and actually help you, especially the Alberta Innovates programs. So there's a big difference in different provinces as well. And the main reason Alberta is at the moment is change of focus on industry. A lot of it used to be oil and gas focused. Now they're trying to influence health tech and, crypto and things like that. They're trying to bring in new industries into the city or the province. So you'll find the program manager a lot more friendly and wanting to get that money out to the companies out there and the startups out there as well.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of programs coming out here, which is great. And of course, our innovation center is going to be opening up here in about a month and change, I believe. And so we're excited about that. You're going to see a lot more. I mean, we're a very collaborative ecosystem already.
Yeah.
And I think it's even going to become more collaborative. It doesn't matter if it's on the angel side, the VC side, or just the helping side. There's a lot of talk amongst, people throughout the entire province, which is great.
Yeah.
So I know you meant, I mean, obviously grants are a big part. And I mean, I have someone I send them to, and I know there's been a few forwarded to you because, again, it's like you said, it's almost like a jungle out there on how to get through that. And it can be difficult, and somebody should guide you through it. And I highly recommend that for anybody that is listening now or after the fact that, please reach out to one of us, and we can help you. But what about, you talked about the government initiatives. What about beyond government funding? What kind of they are?
Sure. So we've got other two other areas. And so the second area of non-dilutive we do is we do your standard financing of equipment, land and things like that. But where we've actually found a real niche with young companies is financing purchase orders and contracts. So a lot of young companies are landing government contracts or large purchase with reputable firms for $500,000 to $1 million, but they can't take those contracts on agreements because they don't have the money to meet those demands. So the banks can't help you because they're like, well, you don't fit into our box, and I really can't lend you because you don't plug into the system unless you've been in business and generated revenue for 2 years. BDC is the same as well. They can't give you a line of credit. They can't even open some industries. They won't even give you a credit card at all, right? Or can't even open up a bank account for the cannabis space because they just don't like it. So we found that, okay, well, if you've just landed a big contract with Canadian Tire or the local municipality for $500,000 or $1 million, we'll finance it, right? It's a pretty much secured agreement. It's collateral, and we take that as the security, and we will provide cash flow so you can go meet the order, meet the demand, and get your business off the ground. And what that allows companies that we're working with is not to go chase that business that they had the conversation a year ago saying, well, these guys wanted to sign with me. I couldn't do it because I didn't have the money, but now I can leverage that agreement. So that's what we do. And that seems to be uplifting, taking off really well in the last 7 or 8 months with what we're doing and the market we're seeing. And it just became a natural fit that startups have gone to that marketing stage now where they're deploying, they've got a little bit of traction, but if they had that big contract, they could just explode. And yeah, it's been phenomenal response in a lot of companies that are doing that right now.
Yeah, and I love that aspect because you know what, you're helping the little guy where some of the banks that are pulling in billions of dollars a quarter. Well, just don't give a shit, and it bothers me, right? Saying, you know what, I've heard horror stories here during COVID about recalling loans and doing this, and I was like, you know what, this is the last time you should be doing something like that. Like, this is where people need a little more help. So getting that purchase order funded, it can be the difference between success and failure.
Yeah, and our goal isn't there to be long term. We do bridge loans, right? So our goal is to help them as far as we can, so then they can go to the bank and get cheaper money, or BDC and get the cheaper money. And to be honest with you, I get referrals from the banks, because some of these people do care, and they just go, I just can't put them in the system. I just help them out, please, right? And then we'll take the stage, and we're more than happy to do that. And the other process, I think the big thing with the banks is, and it's just it's a long process. It could take anywhere from 6 weeks to 3 months to get a loan approved. And a lot of these young companies need the money yesterday. We have a return. We'll keep going through the process with the bank, and then once that comes in, just take us out.
Yeah.
So we don't stop their flow and stop their business. They can keep running and do their payrolls and whatever else they need to do while they're waiting in capital. Sometimes doesn't happen. You get a lot of looky-loos that, yeah, we're interested, but never write a check, and they keep asking the same 12 months and never move forward. But you don't want to note that could be the white knight for you. So you step in or contracts.
I don't. You know, here's plan B. And some people just say, you know, this is plan A, we're going to get funding, and plan, I don't have anything else. So that's it. So, you know, having anybody, again, listening to this, that, you know, you got to have plans A, B, and C when it comes to finance.
Always have options. You've always got to have options, right? And sometimes I would say, especially when they're raising capital, if you can't get your friends and families to believe in you, why should anyone else, right? So when you're raising, you got to show that you can get the people that you the closest and dearest to just maybe have some sort of, even if it's 50 grand that you raised, it shows that, hey, someone believes in what you're trying to do, right? And so I mean, but non-dilutive is something I encourage, especially when you're young, and especially the government funding opportunities. There's a lot out there, and as a young company, even if you've got $30,000, that's a lot of money for a young company. You can do a lot with that. So definitely utilize that, right?
Oh, absolutely. No, that you know, you know, one of the first conversations we have is financial before we start working, or even just talking to a person. And if they have 5,000, 30,000, 100,000, you better be able to make that money go a very long ways.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that, right? And it's very, there's money out there, but it's very difficult to access at times. So, you know, spend wisely and invest in the things that you need to invest in.
And I think I see a lot of people, companies falling it's in their planning, the financial planning. They don't really do the exercise. Okay, what do we need to do? What are our objectives? Business forecasting. Where do we need to hit the break even?
Yeah.
And I tell them, go through this exercise. And if you're trying to say you're going to make 100,000 sales in 3 months, it's probably not realistic, right? So be realistic of what you can really achieve with the tools you have and the people that you have. Because if you're a 2-person show, there's only so much you can do. And then figure out, is it going to take you 6 years to get there, or 2 years? All right. Because if it's going to take you 6 years, you might want to change your idea or pivot your idea or change industries or something. And a lot of these companies don't do that exercise. And that's their downfall, I find, when they're raising as well, is they not walk through the scenario of what's realistic, what can we really achieve.
No, absolutely. Again, I'm talking with Bhavik, the VP of OKR Financial. You can click on their website. I haven't said that yet. We've had such a good conversation, which is awesome. And I'm passionate about, especially financing, because it's probably the number one discussion I have with startups out there. So okrfinancial.com. Again, click on it in the website or on the comment section. We'll take you directly there. So what's next for OKR?
So, I mean, we're still doing the same thing. We're just expanding furthermore national, having a bigger presence nationally. So we were doing it in pockets. Now we've got a major presence in Atlantic Canada right now. There's a lot going out there. Atlantic Canada has been very creative with their funding initiatives. A lot of the provinces have a big major mandate on climate change and green initiatives. They're putting a lot more money in that.
Yeah.
I've especially seen that a lot more out in Atlantic Canada. The first province to actually do that was Alberta. They were pushing money, and then now the other ones are following suit, which is really good. And we're excited to see a couple of new. I think there's about 3 new innovation hubs just in Alberta that we're excited about as well. Like they've been a bit more creative now as well. Whether it's on the health tech side or platform Calgary, there's things happening in Alberta that are pretty exciting. So we're just making sure we're in there. Making sure people know that we exist, and a lot of people do know we exist, but just want to make sure the startups, because startups are always fresh and they don't know sometimes, right, the other options. So presence is growing there. We've expanded into the UK, doing what we do here. The UK is a very similar market to Canada. The only difference is, I would say, is Canada has probably double the number of programs for government grant funding, but the UK is rapidly growing, and what we do out here doesn't really exist in the UK on the government funded side. So it's an opportunity that we're trying to take and see if we can blow that up out there as well. But that's really what's happening. It's just there's more incubators opening up everywhere nationally. I see more and more opening up, little small ones, little niche ones, and it's interesting. It's good, which means he's staying in Canada. See.
Absolutely, and I love what thing that, again, networking, even if it's sports, just going to coming up tomorrow, and the Great Saskatchewan Pitch Marathon. We have Calgary, Edmonton, Tuna, Regina for the after parties. And you know what? If you don't have an answer, somebody, because they probably do, and they'll be more than generous enough in saying, hey, I talk to this person, talk to that person. And I mean, you're not alone on this jersey, and somebody has gone asking for, again, not a talk to people, be able to challenges a hell of a lot more quick.
UK, back people are actually willing to pay from the same industry. They'll give you the advice. They'll say, yeah, we got funding from here. Go speak to this person, or you should go speak to this person, or go to. That's Canada for you.
Yeah.
And they'll help each other grow, right? And it's very diverse. Do like about that. And so you're right. Don't be scared to ask, right?
Yeah.
They've done a great pitch. Ask them to creating that pitch deck, or who they're using, especially when a big one is when you're evaluating your company. I'd say 9 out of 10 companies get their valuations wrong. They're out for lunch or most of the time, right? So get advice. How do we do that so you don't look ridiculous in front of investors? Like, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. They understand the valuation. Just little things like that. So take the opportunity to learn and all the time. I always say that.
Yeah. And I love that, right? And I don't joke about mention that, even if you are an investor and someone here will hand you a check for $250,000 and they'll still say, I'm sorry, we couldn't get you more. Like, that's just the way we are. We're helpful. We're nice.
It is true. Maybe not as friendly in Toronto, but definitely.
Well,
everywhere else. Sure.
We could probably have an hour discussion on Toronto and valuations on their own. That's for sure. But no, I think this has been extremely helpful, and I love the advice that you have given, and I know people will find this very very beneficial to their journey. But you can't use what we've talked about so far. it comes to the last question. If you have one piece of advice for a startup, entrepreneur, or small business, what would that be?
One piece of advice. And I can't use anything I've said already.
Exactly. Make it a little difficult.
Actually, I do have one. Outside the right, try and see whatever you're trying to develop can be in something completely random. Would it work in a random industry? So an example would be, let's say you're developing something for the oil and gas industry. Can you use your idea and technology to help a charity? Can it be pivoted? And the reason I say that is that's your plan B and your plan C if things don't work out, to pivot. And if your business cannot pivot and you're in a certain industry and it crashes, you're done. So whatever you're developing, always have creative ideas in the back burner, plan B and a plan C to pivot whatever you're trying to do. And that way your idea doesn't die and go into a graveyard. You can actually turn it into another success, or you can open up new avenues. As you get to stage one, they say, okay, now I can go into this industry and go into that industry. It's been really useful in the last year or so, especially with COVID. A lot of companies have had to pivot what they're doing. You've got companies that were making gin, distilleries, started making hand sanitizers. They pivoted and they made money out of it, right? Kept them alive. So I always say creative thinking is a way to success, especially a young tech company, a startup for sure.
You know, I love that, and I agree with it. And I actually have an example of that from Telling It Like It Is. I had Amanda at Nanotech, lithium out of the ground a more environmental friendly way, and off and blowing up right now, which is awesome. But I had somebody, you know, from Egypt actually watch that I have through here, and they're like, listen, can I get in touch with her, because we think maybe her technology can take salt water and turn it into agricultural grade water, and can you introduce me to her? And I was like, absolutely, send it. And again, talk. She goes, I don't know, but it could be a good option for. They talk, and again, there's your plan B. 7 years.
Exactly, and that's something I think to companies throw ideas on a board. You don't have to act on it straight away, but you know there's something out there, and sometimes you do have to act on it straight away because of natural disasters and pandemics that happen, and you just have to pivot, right? So that's what I'd say.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I love it that it rolled right into an actual real world example from Telling It Like It Is.
Yeah.
That wasn't planned. I can guarantee you people that's not planned.
Definitely not planned.
Oh man, I really appreciate you spending time with us today and sharing your knowledge and you know, the business acumen that you do have. So thanks again, and I really appreciate you know, the half an hour that you spent with us.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Excellent. Well, I hope everybody enjoys the Wednesday, and we will be back next Wednesday, same time, same place. So again, hope everybody has a great week, and we will chat soon.